They laughed when I spoke too loud at dinner, said my stories had too much volume. But no one stopped to ask why I raised my voice in the first place. Maybe because I was tired of being spoken over. Maybe because silence, after a while, starts to feel like dying in small pieces. That night, as my daughter-in-law poured more wine and the others chuckled politely, I realized I was no longer the woman they used to listen to. I had become background noise. It was a birthday dinner for my grandson, 8 years old, all freckles and missing teeth. I had baked him a carrot cake, real carrots, hand-grated, no shortcuts. He said thank you, shyly, and gave me a hug. But the rest of them? They thanked the bakery. No one asked if it was homemade. No one noticed the smell of cinnamon that had clung to my sleeves all afternoon. "Mum," Lily said, too cheerfully, "maybe next time just keep it simple, okay? He's not into fancy things." I didn't say anything, just smiled. I've learned that silence is often less trouble than truth, but it burned a little. Then, during the meal, someone asked where I'd grown up. I answered. Told a short story about riding in my father's truck through Kansas fields, dust in our mouths, and how he let me steer once when I was 10. Just a minute of memory. That's when Lily rolled her eyes and said, "There she goes again, Miss Epic Novel." Everyone laughed, even my son. I felt the shift, not just in the room, but in myself. Like something long asleep had opened one eye. After dessert, I carried the dishes to the kitchen. Lily had bought new plates, white, square, expensive looking. She hated my old ones, called them country kitsch. I washed the dishes slowly, one by one, careful not to chip her perfect porcelain. I stayed in the kitchen for the rest of the evening, pretended to tidy up. Truth is, I couldn't go back to that table, not after hearing myself become the punchline. That night, I lay in the guest room, not even a proper one, just a narrow bed, no closet, a lamp that flickered if you touched the switch too hard. The walls were painted grey, like a waiting room. I stared at the ceiling and thought of my husband. He would have said something. He always did. "You don't have to shrink to be loved, Martha," he used to tell me. "You take up space because you matter." I guess I forgot that somewhere between his funeral and my son's wedding. The next morning, I made coffee before anyone woke up. That's what I did now. Made coffee, cooked breakfast, folded laundry, drove the kids to soccer practice, picked up groceries, and tried not to be too much. As I stood in the kitchen, pouring hot water over the grounds, I heard Lily's voice float down the stairs. "She just talks so much. It's exhausting." Then silence. And then my son, Nate. "She means well. Just, yeah." That just, yeah, sat heavier on my chest than anything else. No defense, no affection, just resignation. They thought I couldn't hear them, that I didn't understand what wasn't said. I understood too well. When they came downstairs, I served them eggs and toast. Lily smiled and said, "Thanks, Martha." Not Mom, just Martha. I smiled back, because I'd learned years ago how to smile while bleeding inside. The rest of the week passed like warm milk, bland, quiet, forgettable. I went to bed early, kept my voice down, didn't tell any stories. But on Friday evening, when the neighbour came by and complimented the flower beds, I said thank you, because those were mine. The marigolds, the rosemary, the way the soil curved around the stones. I had done that. Lily said it was clutter. I said nothing. That night, I found an old box in the back of the closet. Inside were papers, insurance documents, bank statements, a yellowing deed with my name on it. They forgot. Or maybe they never knew. But I paid for this house. Every brick, every square foot. Nate was just starting college when I signed the mortgage alone after my husband's heart attack. I worked 2 jobs. I rented out half the place for years. I kept it going while they built their careers and their curated lives. I let them live here. Let them call it theirs. Let them repaint my walls and throw away my dishes and decide I was too loud. I stood in the hallway that night, watching the dim light stretch across the floor like a ribbon. My bones ached, but not from age, from restraint. And somewhere inside me, something uncurled. Something that had been quiet too long. I didn't go looking for the words. They came to me. 2 days after that dinner, I overheard Lily on the phone again. I hadn't meant to listen. I was just folding laundry on the landing when her voice came up the stairs, sharp and flat like a ruler slapping a desk. "She just blurts things out," she said. "Like no filter at all. It's embarrassing. Sometimes I wish she'd just know when to shut up." She paused. The other person must have said something. Then, "I know she means well, but honesty isn't always helpful. You can't just say whatever you think, especially at her age." At her age. Like my years had revoked my right to speak plainly, as if decades of truth-telling had somehow soured into bad manners. I stood there, socks half-matched in my hands, heart steady but sore. That was the word, wasn't it? Honest? Too honest? Too straightforward? Too inconvenient? I didn't confront her. I didn't walk in with a lecture or a raised voice. I simply turned and went back to my room, finished the laundry, and laid out everyone's clothes for the morning like I always did. I ironed Nate's work shirt, even though he hadn't asked. I packed granola bars in the grandkids' lunchboxes and left little napkins with hearts drawn on them, like I used to when they were smaller. I kept doing all the things that didn't count but were somehow expected. That evening, we ate chili in silence. Lily said it needed more salt. Nate didn't say anything. The kids talked about math homework and kickball. No one asked about my day. No one noticed the fresh tulips I'd arranged in the vase by the sink. After dinner, I took the trash out. I stayed outside longer than I needed to. The sky was turning the color of bruised lavender, the air soft and unsure. I looked up at the windows and saw them lit with warm yellow. From the outside, the house looked like a home. But inside, I had become a ghost. They called it help. They said things like, "We appreciate everything you do," but always with that tone, like I was being indulged, like I was the one lucky to have a place here. As if I hadn't once poured every spare dollar into this roof. As if I hadn't gone without so they could go further. They said I was honest. But honesty, I've learned, is only welcome when it flatters, not when it reminds people of what they've taken for granted. Nate used to value my opinions, used to ask for them. I remember when he and Lily were just dating, how he would bring her by and sit nervously in the kitchen, hoping I'd like her. I did, back then. She was bright, clever, ambitious. I thought we'd grow close. But then marriage came, and careers, and kids. And somewhere in the mix, I stopped being someone to impress and became someone to manage. They thought they could outgrow me, like I was a phase. But roots don't go away just because the branches forget where they started. The next morning, Lily asked if I could maybe not correct the kids so much. Apparently, when I told Ava that less was for quantities and fewer was for countables, I was undermining her parenting style. I said nothing. That afternoon, I baked banana bread, the good kind, with walnuts and dark chocolate chips. I wrapped it in parchment and left it on the counter with a note that read, "Eat me while I'm still warm." By dinner, it was gone. No one said thank you. I went to bed early, pulled the covers up to my chin, and stared at the shadow of the tree outside my window. Too loud, too honest, too much. Those weren't words they'd said directly, not all at once, but they hung in the air, in their glances, in their sighs, in the way they gently excluded me from plans. We thought you'd want to rest. We figured it might be too much. It's probably not your kind of thing. That night, I dreamed I was back in the old classroom. Blackboard smudged with chalk, desks all facing me. I was holding a lesson plan, ready to teach. But no one was there, just empty chairs. My voice echoed in the silence. I woke up before dawn, sat at the edge of the bed, reached for the notebook I kept in the nightstand, a habit from years ago, when I still believed that putting things into words made them easier to carry. I wrote one line. They don't know what they're doing, but I do. Then I closed the book and stood by the window, watching the first hints of light crawl across the sky. I wasn't planning revenge. I wasn't planning anything, really. But I had started remembering. And memory, for women like me, is power waiting to be reawakened. You're just a lot sometimes, Mom. That's what Nate said. Not in anger, not even in frustration, just flatly, like it was a fact, like saying the weather had turned or the milk had soured. It was Saturday morning. Lily was at yoga. The kids were watching cartoons, slumped on the couch with syrup on their sleeves. I had made waffles, real ones, not from a box. Used the old cast-iron press, the one with the worn-down handle, and the memory of my husband's hands still in its grip. I had offered Nate a plate. He took it, ate every bite, and then, without looking up, said it. You're just a lot. My breath caught somewhere behind my ribs. I wiped my hands on the dish towel and leaned against the counter. What does that mean? He shrugged, still chewing. You talk a lot. You always have advice. You get upset when we don't do things your way. It's just exhausting sometimes. Exhausting? I repeated. He nodded, not cruelly, just distracted. Like this was a long overdue observation. I didn't answer. Just picked up his empty plate and rinsed it in the sink. An hour later, Lily returned, fresh-faced and humming. She didn't greet me, just walked past, kissing Nate's cheek and tapping on her phone. I stood in the hallway, hands still damp from dishes, and realized that somehow I had become a shadow in my own home. No, not my home. Their home. That's what they called it now. Even the kids referred to it that way. But I remembered. I remembered when this house was just a blueprint on my kitchen table, when the down payment had come from my savings, when I had spent nights calculating interest rates, comparing school districts, negotiating with contractors. I remembered walking through this very hallway with the smell of wet paint and dreams still fresh in my mouth. It was never supposed to be permanent, moving in with them. After Harold died, I told myself I'd stay 6 months, just until I got my bearings. They insisted. It'll be good for the kids, Lily said. You won't be alone, Nate said. I believed them. And then 1 month became 2, 6 became 12. A year turned into almost 5. And now I was told I was too loud, too honest, too much. I sat outside that afternoon, pruning the rose bushes. They were my roses, planted years ago, before Lily decided she wanted succulents instead. I had hidden the roots from the landscaper, waited until she lost interest, and coaxed them back to bloom. That's what I do. I keep things alive, even when no one wants them. As I clipped the dead heads from the stems, I felt the whisper of old lessons. My mother bent over her own garden, saying, You don't fight weeds with fury. You outgrow them. That evening, Lily hosted a book club. 6 women in pastel sweaters and matching laughter. I stayed upstairs, not invited. My knitting needles rested quietly in my lap as I listened to them talk about self-care and setting boundaries. At one point, I heard her voice float up. I think it's brave when women know what they need. Like, even if it's space, from family, from noise, it's okay to ask for that. They murmured agreement. Someone poured wine, and I realized she was talking about me. I was the noise, the weight, the uninvited presence. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. Instead, I reached for the drawer of my nightstand and pulled out the manila folder I hadn't opened in years. Inside were documents, original copies, mortgage records, deed, property tax statements, all with my name, not Nate's, not Lily's, mine. I had let them believe. That was my mistake. I had let them believe this house was theirs because it was easier than reminding them otherwise. But now, their words sat in my chest like stones, and stones, over time, become steps. I made tea, mint, from the garden I'd tucked behind the shed, and I sat at the window, sipping slowly, letting the warmth steady my thoughts. Too loud, too honest, too much, maybe. But I had also been too generous, too patient, too willing to wait. That was going to change. I wasn't angry. I was simply done asking for permission to exist. They didn't know the house was mine. Or maybe they did once. But memory is a slippery thing when entitlement settles in. We bought the land in 1986. Harold and I. He had just been promoted at the bank, and I was still teaching fourth grade full-time. We'd been renting a cramped little duplex with a leaky roof and thin walls, could hear the neighbours sneeze clear through the drywall. When Harold came home with the news, I said, "Let's do it." No hesitation. We'd saved for years. No vacations, no new car. I even tutored summers just to add to the pot. And when we signed the mortgage papers, my name was first. Martha Louise Grayson. Clear as day. I never changed it. Never needed to. We built it brick by brick. Not literally, of course. We weren't that handy. But we picked every tile, every hinge, every cabinet. I still remember the day the oak floors were installed. Harold paced the living room like it was a church. "This'll be the last house we ever buy," he said. "Might as well get it right." And we did. Raised 2 kids in it. Buried a dog in the backyard under the cherry tree. Hosted Thanksgivings, graduations, even my father's wake. This house carried laughter in its bones. When Harold passed, I nearly sold it. Grief makes you itchy. Like you want to shed everything familiar just to breathe. But I stayed. And I kept it. So when Nate and Lily got married and started looking for a bigger place, it seemed natural. "You've got that big house all to yourself, Mom," Nate said one afternoon over lunch. "Would you ever consider, I don't know, maybe we all live there for a bit? Help each other out?" I thought about it. I did. He had just been laid off. Lily was pregnant. They were struggling. So I said yes. They moved in. I moved into the smaller downstairs bedroom. Just temporarily, Lily had promised. And somehow the rest of the house became theirs. Their furniture, their decor, their rules. I didn't argue. Not at first. Families shift. You make room. You bend. But the bending didn't stop. Lily painted over the yellow hallway I loved. Said it was dated. My teacups disappeared from the kitchen shelves, replaced with minimalist white mugs. My piano was sold without asking. It just didn't fit the aesthetic. She told me that one like it was logical. Every time I asked about it, she'd smile that tight smile of hers and say, "We're just trying to make it feel like home." Home. Funny, that word. Because I had built this home, paid every bill, scrubbed every tile, paid off the mortgage 15 years early. They weren't trying to make it feel like home. They were trying to erase that it had ever been mine. One afternoon, I was organizing the attic, my attic, and found the box I'd kept from the original closing. Deed, title, warranty. All legal and notarized. All in my name. I took them downstairs, placed them on the kitchen table. When Nate walked in, I said, "Do you remember this?" He glanced at the documents, brow furrowing. "Yeah. I mean, sure. From when you bought the house, right?" I nodded. "Still mine, you know. I never transferred it." He blinked. "Oh. Huh. I just assumed that you lived here long enough it became yours?" He looked uncomfortable, rubbed the back of his neck. "I guess I hadn't thought about it." "That's the problem," I said, not unkindly. "No one thought." He didn't argue, just nodded slowly and walked out of the room. I left the papers where they were for 3 days. No one moved them. No one said a word. But the energy shifted. Lily stopped correcting my grocery list. Nate started offering to unload the dishwasher. Too late. They had mistaken silence for surrender, but silence is just strategy, stretched thin. And I had started listening to myself again. There's a kind of invisibility that doesn't happen all at once. It creeps, like ivy. Soft at first, almost flattering. "You're so helpful, Mom. We couldn't do this without you." Until it chokes the light. I became the ghost who kept the machine running. Every morning, I was up before anyone else. I packed school lunches, made oatmeal, laid out uniforms, tied shoes. I wiped down counters that I hadn't dirtied, folded clothes I didn't wear, scrubbed floors. No one thanked me for noticing. "You don't have to do all this," Lily said once, waving vaguely at the spotless kitchen. "But of course we appreciate it." She didn't look up from her phone, and that was the game. I was thanked when it was convenient, complimented when there were guests. But when I moved a charger or used the wrong setting on the dryer, suddenly I was overstepping. "You don't need to do their homework, Mom," Lily snapped one Tuesday. I had only corrected a math mistake. "They have to learn." I nodded, said nothing, but I saw the look on Ava's face, part relief, part guilt. The same look I used to wear when my own mother stayed up late sewing my recital costume. Even though her hands ached from cleaning houses all day, I knew that look too well. Later that night, as I was picking up stray socks from the hallway, I overheard Lily whispering to Nate in the bedroom. "She's turning them into little versions of herself. Is that bad?" Nate's voice was soft, tired. "I don't want them clinging to her outdated ideas. We're raising independent thinkers, not more loud, opinionated people." Opinionated, independent. The words tangled in my chest. I wasn't raising them. I was holding the scaffolding while they built their world. And yet, somehow, my presence was the problem. I retreated further, stopped commenting on homework, stopped offering recipes, sat in silence at dinner unless spoken to. I became helpful, but harmless. And still, it wasn't enough. One day, I returned from grocery shopping to find the entryway bench missing, the one Harold had built from reclaimed pine, with tiny initials carved into the side. Our initials. H+M, like teenagers. "Where's the bench?" I asked. "Oh," Lily said breezily. "We donated it. It didn't match." Didn't match. I stood there, keys still in hand, breath caught behind my ribs. "You donated something that didn't belong to you," I said quietly. She blinked. It was falling apart. I didn't respond. I couldn't trust my voice. That night, I opened the box of photographs I kept under the bed. Black and whites from our wedding, faded Polaroids of the kids in Halloween costumes, snapshots of summer barbecues where Harold always overcooked the hot dogs. I sat with them on the floor, surrounded by everything they didn't see anymore. They said I was too much, but really, I was just too permanent. A relic of their past they hadn't expected to come with terms and conditions. The next morning, Lily handed me a new list. Could you pick up these things when you're out? Toilet paper, almond milk, organic snacks, dry shampoo. I nodded, took the list, then added 3 items of my own in blue ink, legal pad, manila envelopes, ink for the printer. Because ghosts can carry pens too. And I had started preparing to haunt them with the truth. They didn't invite me to Ava's birthday party. I found out by accident, heard Lily on the phone with her sister, listing caterers and confirming the balloon arch. Then later, I noticed the pile of wrapped gifts hidden behind the coats in the front hall closet. Pink bows, glitter bags, a cake stand I hadn't seen before. She's turning 11, Lily said at dinner, slicing into salmon I'd seasoned. We're keeping it low-key. I smiled and nodded. Low-key, of course. The next day, I watched her carry boxes out to the car. Nate followed, arms full of folding chairs. Going somewhere? I asked, gently. They both hesitated. Then Lily smiled in that tight way she did when she wanted to sound generous but firm. Oh, we're doing Ava's party at that event space on Market Street. You know, something fun for the kids, just a few school friends. She looked away as she said it, and that told me everything. No one had mentioned a party before. No one had asked if I wanted to come. No one had said the words out loud, but I had been edited out. It'll be loud, she added. Lots of sugar and screaming. Probably not your scene. Not your scene. They drove away without saying goodbye. I sat on the porch swing and watched the sun inch along the railing. The wind stirred the mint in my planter. My hands rested still in my lap, palms up, as if waiting for something to return that never would. They had taken my stories out of her birthday. When Ava was born, I was the first to hold her after the nurse. Her hair was damp, her fists curled. I sang to her in the hospital room while Lily slept. For 3 years, I rocked her every afternoon. She called me Mimi before she could say Mama. But now, at 11, she would blow out candles I wouldn't see, open gifts I didn't wrap, pose for photos I wouldn't be in. And I would still be home in the house I paid for, waiting quietly. That evening, I set the table for dinner like usual. They returned late, glitter in Ava's hair, icing on Lily's sleeve. Ava gave me a cupcake wrapped in foil. Mum said you don't like loud parties, she said. I kissed her forehead. That's true, I whispered, but I do love birthdays. She blinked up at me, unsure, then disappeared upstairs with her lute. Nate came into the kitchen. You okay, Mum? He asked. I wiped the counter. Of course. Why wouldn't I be? He hesitated, then said the words I think he believed were kind. We just didn't want you to feel out of place. Out of place. In the house I had built, with the girl I helped raise. I understand, I said. And I did. They needed me when they were overwhelmed, when Lily's postpartum depression had hollowed her out, when Nate was laid off and Ava needed someone to walk her to kindergarten, when the roof leaked, when the furnace gave out, when they couldn't make the mortgage payment. I was useful then. Now? I was background, too loud, too honest, too much, too inconvenient. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed with my eyes open, listening to the pipes groan, the wind shift, the echo of children's laughter from a party I didn't attend. And then I rose, went to my closet, opened the fireproof box. Inside, deed, insurance, tax bills. I added one more thing, a letter, not to them, to myself. It said, When the time comes, remember that absence is not cruelty. It is clarity. I folded it neatly, slid it between the pages of my notebook, and turned off the light. It happened on a Thursday, the kind of day that starts with coffee grounds spilled on the counter and ends with something you don't come back from. Lily had returned from a haircut, her new bob sharper than her words. Nate was working late. The kids were at a sleepover. Just the two of us in the kitchen, air too still, the dishwasher humming like an anxious guest. I was cleaning up, quietly, as always. The soup had been lukewarm, her salad untouched. I hadn't asked why. I didn't ask questions anymore. She leaned against the doorway, arms folded. "I think you should consider staying with your sister for a bit," she said, eyes fixed on the tile. My hand paused mid-wipe. "Excuse me?" She straightened up. "Just for a while, to reset, to get some space. You've been tense lately, distant." I turned to face her. My voice didn't rise. "Have I been rude? Unkind?" "No," she said quickly. "Just, it's not about that. It's about energy. The kids sense it. Nate senses it. Honestly, I do too." "Energy," I repeated, as if tasting it. She stepped closer. "I'm not trying to be harsh. I know this arrangement hasn't always been easy. You've helped us so much, truly. But we need room to grow. You've had your life. Now we need to build ours." There it was, not cruel, just cold, carefully worded like a memo. I set the cloth down, dried my hands. "I see." "Martha," she said, softer now, "you've been wonderful. But sometimes we outgrow things, even good things." I nodded. "Outgrow people, you mean?" "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." She didn't argue. I walked past her into the hallway, every step deliberate. Up the stairs, into my room. I closed the door behind me and exhaled, long and slow. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't made a scene. But it was a dismissal. And for the first time, I didn't feel sad. I felt done. When Nate came home later that night, he didn't come see me. They probably discussed it over tea, framed it as temporary, wrapped in the comfort of their own logic. They didn't know I had been preparing. 2 days earlier, I'd contacted a lawyer. Just an inquiry. Nothing dramatic. I had asked about ownership, about rights, about options. He told me what I already knew. The house was legally mine, had never been transferred, all documents clean, up to date. "You can do whatever you want with it," he said. "It's yours." I thanked him, hung up, sat still for a long time. And now, here I was, being asked to leave what I owned so they could feel more comfortable in a life I had financed. I didn't pack that night. I didn't scream. I didn't confront Nate. I simply wrote 2 things in my notebook. She said, "I've had my life." She forgot who paid for hers. Then I turned off the lamp and closed my eyes. And for the first time in months, I slept all the way until morning. The next morning, I made blueberry pancakes, not from a box, real ones, with lemon zest and a pinch of nutmeg. Ava liked them that way, or used to. I wasn't sure anymore. Kids forget what fed them. The table was set when Lily came down, still in her robe. Nate followed, scrolling through his phone. "Smells great," he said, distracted. Lily didn't comment, just sipped her green smoothie. I served everyone, sat with them, listened to the clink of forks and the quiet tapping of Nate's thumbs on the screen. Then I said it, softly. "I'll be leaving tomorrow." They looked up. "Where?" Nate asked, more confused than alarmed. "Somewhere quiet. For a while." Lily didn't blink. "Is this about what I said?" "It's about what you didn't say," I answered. Nate shifted in his seat. "Mom, come on. Let's not make this dramatic. I smiled. Oh, I'm not. I'm simply giving you what you've asked for. Space. Silence fell over the table. Ava looked between us, sensing the tremor beneath our calm. I didn't elaborate, didn't accuse. Just stood, cleared my plate, and went upstairs. That afternoon, I met with the realtor. Her name was Mia Tran. Young, focused, polite in a way that didn't feel forced. I want to list it quietly, I said. No signs, no open house, just discreet, direct offers, and no delays. She blinked. It's a beautiful home. It's a house, I said. The home part left a while ago. She didn't ask why, just took notes and assured me she'd handle it personally. That evening, I made one more call. To the lawyer. I'm moving forward, I said. He didn't ask with what. Just said, I'll have everything ready by Monday. When I returned home, the house was dim. I could hear Lily in the kitchen, Ava upstairs with her music. Nate was in the garage. I went to my room and opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a folder, the deed, insurance, tax records, all updated, all clean, my name on every page. I laid them out on the bed, one by one, like cards in a quiet game of poker. I had held this hand for years. Now, finally, I was ready to play it. They had called me too loud, too honest, too much. But what they never called me, what they forgot entirely, was owner. This wasn't just a house I lived in. It was mine. I paid the down payment with money I earned teaching 30 years ago. I covered every repair, every upgrade, every tax bill. Even after they moved in, I kept paying the insurance premiums, quietly, out of habit. They thought kindness meant surrender, that silence meant permission. But silence, I've learned, is just a ledger, and mine was full. I packed that night. Not everything, just the essentials, clothes, the notebook, the folder, a photograph of Harold, smiling in front of the half-built porch. I placed it carefully in the suitcase. Then I stood in the middle of the room and looked around. The bed I'd slept in for years, the books I'd read twice over, the lamp that flickered sometimes when the air turned too dry. This had been my space, my corner. And now I was giving it up, not because I had to, but because I could. I zipped the suitcase shut and left it by the door. In the morning, I would walk out with it, and in the days to come, they would learn what it feels like to live in a house without a foundation. Because I had been the one holding it up, and I was finally putting it down. I left just after sunrise. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that follows an argument, even if no words were said. The suitcase rolled softly behind me like a well-behaved child. I didn't leave a note, just folded my breakfast napkin neatly and placed it on the kitchen counter beside the coffee I brewed but didn't drink. The garden caught the first blush of morning. My mint was still green. The hydrangeas hadn't yet noticed I was gone. I walked down the street, turned the corner, and never looked back. My new place was temporary, a short-term rental arranged through a friend of my lawyer. It wasn't grand. 2 rooms, a kitchenette, and a balcony that caught the wind just right. I unpacked only what I needed and placed Harold's photo on the windowsill. His eyes met mine with that same grin that used to say, "You've got this." The realtor, Mia, called me that afternoon. "We've got 3 private inquiries already," she said, surprised. "Off-market homes this size don't sit long, especially not in that neighborhood." "I'm in no rush," I replied, "but I'm not waiting either." She laughed softly. "I like your style." I ended the call and sat on the small balcony. Below me, the city buzzed, not loudly, but alive. I sipped mint tea and opened the folder again. The deed, the insurance, the tax records. They were more than paperwork. They were receipts for a life given generously and now reclaimed deliberately. Mia called again the next morning. 2 offers. One all cash, above asking. The other slightly under, but flexible on close. I chose the cash offer. A woman named Brenda, divorced, mid-50s, starting over. She said it felt like a house with history, Mia told me. She wants to keep the garden. I nodded. She can have the roses. I signed the documents that evening. My signature didn't shake. My heart didn't flutter. It was done. No ceremony, no announcement. Just a sale like any other, except this one had been years in the making. The next morning, the courier arrived at Nate and Lily's door. Inside the envelope, the official transfer of ownership. Signed, notarized, irrevocable, effective immediately. Alongside it, notice of tenancy termination. 30 days to vacate, or the new owner had legal recourse. I pictured Lily opening the envelope, her eyes narrowing, her breath catching. Nate reading over her shoulder, face pale. Ava asking what was wrong, and neither of them knowing how to explain. It wasn't revenge. It was remembering that I wasn't too much. I was enough to build it, enough to buy it. And now, finally, enough to take it with me when I left. They didn't call at first. I imagine they sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers they hadn't expected. Ownership documents, formal notices, deadlines stamped in bold font. Lily probably went straight to Google. Nate probably just stared. But by nightfall, the calls began. First, just 1. Then 4 more by morning. By lunchtime, 10. All from Nate's number. No voicemails, no texts. He was waiting for me to explain it to him, to soften it, to make it forgivable. But I had nothing to explain. I spent that day in my new apartment. It had clean lines and old pipes. The window let in too much light in the afternoon. But I didn't mind. I brewed tea, rearranged the few books I had brought, started a puzzle I hadn't touched in years. The silence was kind, not tense, not sharp. When evening came, I turned off my phone. The next day, it was Lily. I recognized the number, though she had never called me directly before. Always through Nate, always relayed like a middle schooler passing notes. Now, the calls came in waves, angry, quiet, angry again. By noon, she left a message. Is this some kind of punishment? Because we needed space? This is our home. I listened once, then deleted it. That word again. Our. But they had never said yours, never said thank you for keeping it, never once acknowledged whose name was on the deed. Just assumed that permanence had passed into ownership through sheer audacity. They had confused occupancy with entitlement. The next morning, I received a message from the realtor. Hi, Martha. Lily called the office, pretended to be the homeowner, said the sale was unauthorized. I informed her the documentation is airtight and filed. She hung up. That made me smile. Not from spite, from validation. I wasn't bluffing. I wasn't confused. I was deliberate. And still, more calls. By dinner, Nate tried again. This time, a voicemail. Mom, what are you doing? You can't just sell the house. We live here. I played it twice. Not to analyze it, just to hear his voice. My son, now 42, still speaking like a child who doesn't understand how lights stay on. You can't just sell the house. But I could. And I had. The next day, Lily texted, We'll fight this. Then another, 5 minutes later. You have no idea what you've done. I didn't reply, because I knew exactly what I'd done. I'd left. And I had taken everything I paid for with me. By the end of the week, the neighborhood knew. It started with a glance over the hedge, then a conversation at the mailbox. By Sunday, whispers followed them down the driveway. She sold it. Without telling them? Can she even do that? And the most biting one of all. Imagine getting evicted by your own mother. I wasn't there to hear it, but I didn't have to be. The silence from their end had shifted from control to panic. That kind of silence hums differently, like something about to break. Lily stopped calling, or maybe she just started using Nate's phone again. Either way, I heard less of her voice and more of his. He called 13 times in one afternoon. On the 14th try, he left a voicemail. His voice was hoarse, urgent. "Mom, please, we can't just leave. Where are we supposed to go? The kids are confused. Lily's a mess. I know we didn't always make you feel appreciated, but this is too far." Too far. That made me laugh. Quietly. Just one breath through my nose. They never knew how far I had gone to keep them whole. How many late bills I'd paid without a word. How many nights I'd stayed awake worrying about their problems, their groceries, their children. How often I'd bit my tongue until it bled, just to keep the peace. What they called too far was only me coming home to myself. I spent the next evening watching the sunset from my balcony. No backyard, no garden. Just a view of rooftops and streetlights and lives I didn't need to manage. I brewed tea, chamomile this time. Let it steep a little too long, the way Harold used to. And I thought about how many times I had made tea in that house. Our house. My house. Without anyone ever noticing. Until I stopped. At 8:42 p.m., Nate sent a message. No pleading. No anger. Just one sentence. "Tell me this isn't permanent." I didn't answer, because it was. They had mistaken my stillness for weakness, my helping hands for surrender. But I was never trying to control them. I was simply keeping what I built from being rewritten. Now, with the papers signed, the sale final, the notice delivered, I had done the only thing they never thought I would. I remembered who I was before they forgot. And I acted on it. No shouting, no revenge, just paperwork and peace. The kind they never gave me, but I finally gave myself. I didn't watch them leave. I didn't stand across the street or peek through blinds. That was never my style. I didn't need to see the boxes, the frantic packing, the desperation tucked into plastic tubs and reusable shopping bags. But I imagined it. Lily, hair pulled back, barking orders. Nate sweating through a faded t-shirt, lifting more than his pride could carry. The kids quiet, unsure, glancing around rooms that had once felt safe, now hollow. They had 30 days, but they moved out in 16. No final knock on my door. No apologies. No thank you. The movers came early. I heard later from Mia, my realtor, that Lily tried to ask the new owner, Brenda, if they could stay just a little longer. Brenda declined. "It was never your house," she said calmly. "It's just where you lived." I smiled when I heard that, not because it was harsh, but because it was true. The day after they left, Mia sent me a photo. The front porch, freshly swept. Brenda's potted succulents arranged in a neat line. A new welcome mat that read, "This is our happy place." There was no trace of me, and strangely that comforted me. I didn't need the house to remember me. I carried enough memory for both of us. Back in my apartment, I added a final page to my notebook. Not words this time. Just a clipped corner of the original deed and a folded copy of the sale receipt. Proof. Not for them, for me. The phone didn't ring much anymore. The silence felt different now. Not heavy, not expectant. Just quiet. Then, one evening, it buzzed. Nate. I almost didn't answer, but I pressed the screen. He didn't say hello, just breathed for a moment, then, "We're in a rental. Lily's looking for work. The kids, they ask about you." I waited. I know you're not coming back. I know that now. Still, I waited. I want to say I get it. I didn't before, but I do now. My fingers brushed the edge of my cup. And I'm sorry, he added, for all of it. I didn't speak. Let the apology settle. Let it echo. I never thought you'd leave, he whispered. That's the thing, I wanted to say. You didn't think. But instead, I said only this. I gave you everything I had. All I ever wanted was to be seen while I was still standing. He said nothing, and that was enough. We hung up. No promises, no plans. Just the final sound of something quietly closing. I stepped onto the balcony. The wind had turned. Below me, city lights blinked like slow applause. The mint plants swayed, already needing a trim. I ran my fingers over the leaves and smiled. Because the house was gone, but I was still here. And finally, I was enough. He showed up unannounced. I heard the knock just after sunset. Not urgent, not timid. 3 even taps, like someone who didn't want to scare me, but also wouldn't leave if I didn't answer. I opened the door. Nate stood there, thinner than I remembered, a paper grocery bag in one hand. He wore the same jacket he'd had since college, the sleeves a little too short now. His eyes were tired. Not from work, I thought. From regret. I brought tea, he said. I stepped aside. Shoes off? He smiled faintly, kicked them off without protest. We sat at the small kitchen table. He unpacked the bag slowly. Loose leaf Earl Grey, 2 lemons, a box of shortbread cookies. The kind I used to buy. The kind he never liked as a boy. I wasn't sure what kind you drink now, he said. I haven't changed that much, I replied. He boiled water. I let him. Let him pour. Let him try. When he sat down, he didn't speak at first, just looked around. This place is small, he finally said. It's mine, I said. He nodded. I figured that out. We drank in silence. The kind that once hung like fog now felt like air. I know I should have stopped her, he said eventually. I knew it was wrong, the way she talked to you, treated you. You were tired, I said. Busy? Comfortable. He looked down. I thought you'd always be there. I was. He winced. I didn't come to ask for anything, he added. I wanted to say it, out loud, that you didn't deserve it, that I'm sorry. I sipped my tea, then stood, walked to the small drawer beneath the counter, and pulled out a single envelope. I handed it to him. He opened it slowly. Inside, a photocopy of the deed, and below it, a handwritten note. You can rebuild a home from scratch, but you can't rebuild a mother's trust. Use what you lost to build better. He looked up at me, eyes rimmed with tears. I don't want money, I said. I don't want apologies scribbled in cards. I just want you to remember who I was, before you forgot. He nodded, folding the paper carefully. I do, he whispered. I remember now. We finished our tea. He helped me rinse the cups, dried them with the dish towel I'd embroidered 20 years ago, the one he used to tie around his neck like a cape when he pretended to be a superhero. As he opened the door to leave, he paused. Can I come by again sometime? I didn't answer right away, then said simply, When you're coming as a son, not a guest. He nodded. I'll be back. The door closed behind him, and in the quiet, I reached for my notebook. One final page before the end. He thought I'd never leave. I thought he'd never see me. But I left. And now, maybe, he sees. I no longer needed the house. I thought I would. Thought I'd miss the creak of the hallway at midnight, the way the windows fogged in winter, the smell of jasmine after a spring rain. But what I missed wasn't the house. It was the version of me who built it. She was young and full of lists. Grocery lists, reading lists, plans for holiday dinners taped to the fridge with hopeful magnets. She believed that effort guaranteed safety, that kindness was a language everyone spoke. She didn't yet know what silence costs. But here, in my small apartment on the 5th floor, with a chipped mug and mint on the windowsill, I've found something she never had. Peace without permission. Now, my days are mine. I wake when I choose. I walk to the park with a thermos of tea. I read, I write, I rest. No one interrupts. No one sighs when I speak. No one edits my presence. Sometimes the phone rings. It's Nate. He doesn't ask for anything anymore. Just tells me how the kids are doing. That Lily took a job in another city. That Ava joined the school play. He's learning to talk like someone who listens. And sometimes, just sometimes, I let him. He's rebuilding, not the house. Himself. And I'm not supervising. I built homes my whole life. In classrooms, in kitchens, in gardens. But this one, this quiet life where I am not just useful but whole, this I built for me. Because I was not too loud. I was not too honest. And I was never, not once, too much. I was just too unseen. Until I left. Until I remembered what I paid for. In years, in effort, in love no one measured, and I took it all with me. If you've ever been told you're too much, or not enough, or just in the way, know this. You don't have to prove your worth to people who forgot your name is on the deed. You don't have to shout. You don't have to break things to be heard. You just have to remember who you were, before they buried you in expectation, and stand up, quietly, clearly, completely. I did. And I'm still standing. So if this story stirred something quiet and powerful inside you, if you saw yourself between the lines, then stay with us. Subscribe to Grandma's Untold Stories. Here, we don't ask permission to speak. We just speak and let the world catch up.